Welcome back to the Making Friends podcast, where today we have another episode of the Annotated Book Club. I'm Maisy, and today I'm joined by Jake and his longtime friend Jordan, who you might just get to know a little better in a future interview. Hope you enjoy this episode of our book club.
Somewhere between the shining seas, 3 podcasts, 2 piss breaks, and 1 alert of icy conditions, a sobering of reality came crashing down on us like an overdraft fee from my student loans hitting. The corporate clock that runs thoroughly through my life in a few minutes would once again begin to tick. I recognize this feeling, the 2-day detox of Saturday and Sunday, a rehab that just won't take, but instead is something to be lived for. How much longer? The tension is part of the high. The possibility of physical and mental collapse is very real now. Warily and with few other options, I relent to the American dream. I feel a bit lightheaded. Maybe you should drive.
Welcome to the library, don't tell me. You're here for a special book.
Punk rock, literature, poetry, realizing the power of putting the pen to the paper and expressing yourself.
I am nothing more than a reminder to you that you cannot destroy truth by burning pages.
Welcome back to the Making Friends podcast and another episode of our Annotated Book Club. I'm Maisy, and today I'm joined by Jake and Jordan to discuss Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas by Hunter S. Thompson. Okay, friends, so we're going to start by talking just a little bit about what we're currently reading. And for me, it is Between Two Fires by Christopher Buhlman. It's a horror novel set during the Black Death. I just kind of started it, but it was a Jake recommendation. So I'm enjoying it so far. I just needed a little bit of horror to cleanse my palate after reading Fear and Loathing.
That's valid.
Yeah.
I get that. I'm working on 2 books right now. A book that's become probably my favorite read of the year is The Stronghold by Dino Buzzati. And I don't want to give anything away, but it's faced out, where it's a book of just solitude and being alone and how you're dealing with these emotions of leaving, the world, like a city and everything. It is, I don't know, it's been really great. I've been going through a rip on NYRB books lately, as you know. Mm-hmm. Stoner, Butcher's Crossing. I have The Pornographer next as well. Hard Rain Falling by Don Carpenter. And another book I'm working on, which is more of a fun nonfiction read for me, is Van Gogh, The Life, by Stephen Nafa, I believe, and Gregory White Smith, which is just I love a good nonfiction read. And it's been kind of a joy just learning about Van Gogh and all that, because I don't know shit about art.
Yeah.
Jordan, you reading anything right now?
Yeah, I'm currently reading Aldous Huxley's The Divine Within, which is just a series of his essays on writings of enlightenment. So it's separated into different areas of his search for what is reality, what it means to actually know the world. He goes through several different religions and what's believed and, what he believes and what he refutes, and sort of questions the ideas. What is the nature of God's being? And
have you read this book before?
Effect. No, this is my first time reading it. I've read several Aldous Huxley books, but this is the first time I've read one of his books that is strictly on religion. So I'm excited about the idea of how to delve into how religion affects the world and the way we think about things.
Neat.
Oh, awesome, yeah. I think my books are better, but it's just me. Getting into the topic of the episode, Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas is the most famous work by infamous author Hunter S. Thompson, semi-autobiographical but largely exaggerated. The story follows Raoul Duke, Thompson's self-insert character and his lawyer, Dr. Gonzo, a fictionalized version of real-life lawyer and activist Oscar Zeta Acosta, as they journey to Las Vegas to chase the American dream through a drug-induced haze while ruminating on the failure of the 1960s counterculture movement.
Okay, so first we're going to talk just a little bit about why we picked this book for an episode, and this was my addition to the list. It wasn't in that article that we based some of our picks off of. So I'll tell you that I chose this book mostly based on vibes. I've never read it. I never watched the movie. Frankly, I'd never really been interested in it. But over the years, it's been a book and movie I've heard a lot of people talk about, those people being usually men, including Jake himself. So when we were putting together our book list for this podcast, it's one that automatically came to mind for me. And after having read it, I do understand why that is now. Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas suffers a little bit from what I would call Fight Club syndrome. Both works depict violence and bad behavior in such an entertaining way that surface level readings, viewings of both works lead people to kind of endorse the behavior of their horrific central characters, not really understanding that their depiction in the work is not actually an endorsement. That being said, as a person who reads a lot of books about horrible people, both fiction and nonfiction, I do think that this book does a particularly poor job of letting the reader know that the actions and characters in the book are not to be looked up to. And I think that has a lot to do with the overall nihilism at the heart of the story. So just to kind of lead us into this, let's all kind of go around and talk a little bit about our history with the book and our initial feelings upon reading or rereading it. So Jordan, why don't you go ahead and talk about yours?
Okay, I first knew about this from the movie. I remember the Johnny Depp movie, and I grew up knowing it was like this wild ride through Las Vegas. I never thought of it as like an actual, reality. I didn't know who Hunter S. Thompson was. And
how old were you when you first saw the movie then?
I didn't know. I hadn't seen the movie. I'm telling you, I just knew it.
Okay, you knew of it.
I knew the Johnny Depp movie. I knew it existed, but I didn't know what was involved in it. I just knew it was a movie about a couple of crazy guys in Vegas. That's the way I saw it. It was just like, a wild ride through Vegas. And I will say that when I was about 18 or 19, one of my older cousins who was kind of involved in getting me into a little bit of I won't call it the drug culture, but it's where I started. Well, it's where it's where I stepped above. I'm just gonna be real here and say I smoked weed and I drank when I was in high school, but it wasn't until about college that I had a cousin who kind of introduced me to the next step. And I took a step into acid and mushrooms and that. And I remember him telling me, watch Fear and Loathing on acid and it'll be like a 3-day
God,
trip.
this cousin sounds like a great influence.
He wasn't, but I mean, I don't know, in a way he was. He was just a little older than me and he just...
Knew about drugs, I gotcha.
Yeah, and he just sort of, he was like, well, since you're going to take acid, he's like, you know what you ought to do? You gotta watch Fear and Loathing.
That's the kind of older male mentorship that I really like saying, hey, you know what? I'm gonna expand your mind.
Yeah. Well, he did, and I never did it. I'll admit, I never took acid and watched Fear and Loathing. I did smoke and watch it one time, and I don't remember much past the lizard scene. And we can get into that later. But I remember being really stoned and being like, this is far out.
So when did you make it to the book, though?
Okay, so I did read the book after watching the movie. I did watch the movie one time, sober. And I watched it just as a point-blank movie, the same way you would watch any other... I'm trying to think of, a good movie. What's a basic... the way you'd watch Seven, or the way you'd watch Scream.
You sat down and watched a movie.
Yeah, it was a movie.
Yeah.
I didn't think of it as some counterculture aspect. I didn't know who still did not know who Hunter S. Thompson was. I just watched it. I knew it was a Johnny Depp film. It could have been Pirates of the Caribbean, as far as I'm concerned. I watched it. It was entertaining. Benicio del Toro's hilarious, and it's just okay, this is a movie. Then I picked up the book, and when I read it, I was like, well, this is a little different. And I realized how there was a lot more commentary in the book. I started to see, this is what they were trying to do. This is what was going on. After that, to be honest with you, I gained an appreciation for Hunter S. Thompson, his writing. I really like his writing. The way I thought the book was the cliche. The book is so much better than the movie.
I mean, I would agree with that.
Yeah, but so the way he depicts everything, the way he writes, is there are so many things that go on that you can't put on film that he's able to put in words. And it really got me into Hunter S. Thompson. So I've read, a few Hunter S. Thompson books since that, and I decided to reread. I wanted to go back and reread Fear and Loathing, knowing that this is, as you said, his most famous book, his most infamous book. I don't know if it's his best work, just because it's his most famous.
It's not my favorite by him.
Well, yeah, me neither, actually. But either way, it was me wanting to go back and revisit someone from a different perspective, I guess. It's almost like when you listen to... Maybe my very first introduction to Jimi Hendrix was... I'm sorry to go off the rails, but Jimi Hendrix... So I
thought he was going to bring up Jim Morrison or something.
So I heard... let's say my very first song I ever heard by Jimi Hendrix was Hey Joe. And I'm like, oh, that's a great song. But then I go and listen to a whole album of his, and I'm like, wow, he did so much better. So, sorry if I went off the rails there.
No, you're
But my point is once you really... It's funny to compare the artist to what's famous to what...
Some of his later works are different works.
Because Fear and Loathing is not his first. It wasn't the first book he wrote. If you read some of his earlier stuff, he has some really good things, like Hell's Angels book. That is literally one of his best. Yeah, what was that?
I was saying his Kentucky Derby piece.
Yeah, and then what's the other one?
Campaign
Fear
Trail,
and Loathing on the
lot.
Campaign Trail. Yeah, so
Yeah.
that's not always so.
And those are just like some of his other bigger works, but yeah, he's got a whole collection.
So I think this is a great
short
insight into Hunter S. Thompson, but not
the whole picture.
not
Well,
at all.
Again, I don't think the point of the episode is to paint the whole picture. I didn't cut you off. I'm sorry, but like with my own kind of history with the book, I've read the book 3 times now. The first time I read it when I was like 12 or 11, and it was just one of those quick like teenager reads. It was a fun little romp through drug and like debauchery and just enjoying like something that was easy to read. Something that I didn't take the time to sit and digest, nor did I understand the context outside of the book of that history, late 60s, early 70s. Mm-hmm. Second time I reread it, actually, I was just coming out of law school. I was depressed. I was burned out and everything. And my basically kind of like a mentor, not a mentor so much, someone who scolded me for not doing my best at law school, suggested to get back into reading, to pick up like a trashy book or something easy to read. They mentioned reading like a trashy romance novel. Mm-hmm. And for some reason I picked up Hunter S. Thompson's Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas. And I reread it, and it was such a fun read, reading it from an older, more mature, from like I said, 11 or 12 earlier, to my mid-20s or early 20s at that point in time. Mm-hmm. Was still a fun read. But again, I didn't, outside of just understanding a lot more of the book itself in depth, I didn't really get it until I sat down with this third time for this episode. And just having more years behind learning, like, again, you have your 60s and 70s, like civil rights movements, law cases, and everything with the Supreme Court, and the presidential administrations going on. I don't know. It's still a fun read. I still enjoyed getting into it. It's still a fun little romp and everything. Going with you, Jordan, the book is better than the movie. I would say I would not rewatch the movie again. It's my second time watching it. But it was fun to see, like, Christina Ricci's in it, Tobey Maguire's in it, Benicio del Toro's in it, so people I forgot were even in this movie and everything like that. So it's a fun little, just kind of like going through history for me personally.
That's type thing.
Yeah, like it was where I suffer nostalgia, I feel, but it was a full-on nostalgia blast for me.
Let me just read something, and this might be ahead, and I'm sorry if I'm going to ruin it, but I will say I remember I was reading this. It was my first year teaching. I teach high school English, and I happened to have this book on my desk because I was reading it.
You had Fear and Loathing on your desk?
Yeah, I just had it to read in my spare time, and I don't know what it was. I just decided I wanted to read it at that point, and I had a copy, and one of my students picked it up and saw, and I'm going to read the very first couple lines, and one of my students picked it up and went, "We were somewhere around Barstow on the edge of the desert when the drugs began to take hold. I remember saying something like, 'I feel a bit lightheaded, maybe you should drive.' And suddenly there was a terrible roar all around us, and the sky was full of what looked like huge bats." My student, who was like a senior in high school, was like, "What are you reading, Mr. Kid?
But
it really didn't go farther than the drugs began to take hold. They're like, "What are you?" And I was like,
I think
it's a book.
I know, and that's a lot of people like remember that opening and like him going down the list of drugs and everything. I think a lot of people only kind of take it like they read that and they take the entire book for that kind of reading. It's very like they take it as a very surface level reading, and they don't dig into what kind of Thompson's going for outside of just being wild drugs.
Okay, so doing a little bit of background on Fear and Loathing, I feel like it's important to get an idea of who Hunter S. Thompson is as a person. Hunter S. Thompson is a cultural touchstone, the inspiration for so many men who have themselves become cultural icons. Anthony Bourdain and Johnny Knoxville come to mind.
Johnny Knoxville. Who the fuck thinks of Johnny Knoxville as a cultural icon?
I mean, he is a cultural icon, whether you like him or not.
They give the culture that Jackass had on like so many men at that time period, like in our younger days.
That saddens me. The idea that Johnny Knoxville
I want to agree with you. I want to agree with you on this, but after hanging out with Maisy and listening to Nick and everything, I think we have to give Johnny.
He
Knoxville
seems like a cool guy. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying he's not a good guy. But icon? Cultural icon? Like, he's going to be remembered. The 2000 and...
The man was in Men in Black 2. Put some respect on his name.
Men in Black 2. Oh, yeah, the other head. I do remember that. That was a good role. Him and, Bam Margera? Yeah. Steve-O?
Are you just listening to Jackass?
Now, yes. Because that's the only thing he's really famous for.
I mean, Jackass is, it's part of the cultural zeitgeist.
So Let's ask a little about that. So people doing stupid things that becomes
falls right in the Fear and Loathing doing stupid things.
We can do it because we can. We're
how
gonna do it.
How many drugs was Steve-O on during these episodes?
Well, we know he had a
drug problem.
Yeah, he has come out about it. Yeah. He has said, and he needed to say. I love the story of him and Mike Tyson doing cocaine in the bathroom. Have y'all heard that story?
I don't think so.
I won't go through the whole thing because well, no, but I love the whole story of he was locked in a bathroom with Mike Tyson and with like a certain amount of cocaine, way more cocaine than I had probably ever done, and Mike Tyson just took cigarettes and dumped the tobacco out, stuffed it with cocaine, and was like, "Here, smoke this." And he said he did that for an hour. I couldn't do that for 5 minutes. You locked me in a room with Mike Tyson.
I love the fact
doing cocaine.
Jordan doubts the cultural icon status of Johnny Knoxville, then goes on a full-blown cocaine story about a person who is related to Johnny Knoxville through Jackass, like a decades-long career.
We will get into this.
We're not getting into Johnny. This is not about Johnny Knoxville. We'll say that in the Jackass episode.
But it was the whole. Yeah, you're right though. Johnny Knoxville though just jarred me. I was like, Knoxville. I could name 8 people that I associate more with Hunter S. Thompson than Knoxville.
I would say, give me 2.
Yeah, give me 2 more.
Johnny Depp.
Is that just because he played?
No, it's because he also was part of sending off the ashes. Everyone knows that famous story, right?
Shot out of a cannon, yes.
Yeah, he was the one who did it.
But does that make him a cultural icon?
Well, Johnny Depp is a cultural icon bigger than Johnny Knoxville.
Well, I
say Johnny.
I think John. I don't want to get into this. Johnny Depp is just an actor.
I disagree. I think Johnny Depp is a bigger cultural icon. He's a cultural icon.
Actor-wise, I don't think he's.
He is an actor. You're right about that.
I think that's the only thing he's known for. The only story you have really is that he did something cool for someone else whose idea it was already. Johnny Depp is not someone I take as an original creator.
All right, so let's go back to Hunter S. Thompson for a minute.
Just go on. I'm sorry. We're going to be quiet.
So bring it back to Hunter S. Thompson. Johnny Depp is more of a cultural icon, but okay.
I'm going to disagree, but we'll let Maisy continue.
All right. So there is a quote from an article that ran in Tulsa World that I really love about Hunter S. Thompson. It contrasts his style with that of one of his contemporaries in the new journalism movement. Quote, while Tom Wolfe mastered the technique of being a fly on the wall, Thompson mastered the art of being a fly in the ointment.
I love that quote. I think that quote really does epitomize the idea that the way I read it, and the way I've read it a couple times, I question is Hunter S. Thompson just going against the grain when they say he's a fly in the ointment? So something that's supposed to be right. Something that's supposed to be, if you want to call it an ointment, it's perfect. Like it's a convalescent, if you will. It's supposed to be the good. It's the way we're supposed to be. And Hunter S. Thompson is not that. Mm-hmm. Hunter S. Thompson is, I'm going to do it this way. And I wonder if he's doing it and for chaos for chaos sake. And that's such a poor way to put it, but it's the only way I can think right now to put it. But is it the idea of, I'm going to do this just because I can, because it's chaotic and I want to ruffle the feathers? I wonder if that's the way people see Hunter S. Thompson, is he just wanted to ruffle feathers.
I get what you're saying. I do agree with that. I think it's also just a nice way to say he can be a real pain in the ass.
Yeah, but was he doing it on purpose?
No, I do think he was.
Was he looking around and saying, "How can I piss?"
No,
people
I don't think
off?
there's any. I don't think anyone would disagree that he was like, I guess, like plugged in or like aware of what was going on in his time when he was writing and everything.
Right.
So yeah, I do think it's very much intentional that at times, at least, that he's going against the grain. He's, what's it like, putting a stick in the eye or whatever like that. He's intentionally being this bother, this pain, inserting himself in these events and writings and everything.
Yeah, Thompson is basically known for, there's a quote I have, that he makes himself ugly to expose the ugliness he sees around him. And sometimes he's just ugly for the sake of it. And I think that that's really interesting.
That is interesting. Like, the idea of, like, I'm going to be ugly because I can be ugly.
He draws attention to the ugly. I think that's the kind of the
I almost wonder if he does it because no one else will. Like, I wonder if it's like he's looking around and saying, why aren't y'all being like that? Is he, this whole idea of like he's.
I kind of have this theory about Thompson. We might get into it a little later on. I think there are other people in this, like maybe not writers and everything, who are writing this, abrasive style. Maybe not gonzo journalism or anything, which we can explain later. But I do think, as a white male at this point in time, he's definitely able to use his platform to bring attention to the ugliness and populations being overlooked or mistreated in his own way. That's how that's my own little theory I have working with Thompson.
Mm-hmm.
I do agree that I do think he's from high school, like, because we both talked about our history with Thompson. Like, we know kind of where he came from and all that kind of fun stuff. But I almost see him as someone who was a rebel. Everyone wants to say rebel without a cause.
Well, now that we're going into it, why don't we just go why don't we look a little back into his own past?
Okay.
And then we can go from there and everything.
All right.
Yeah, so Thompson was born in Louisville, Kentucky in 1937, and he has basically, according to everyone around him, always been a rebel, a larger-than-life character who had trouble with authority, rules, and tradition of any kind, regardless of their use and intent. Apparently, he spent his high school graduation day in jail as part of a 6-week sentence for robbery, and wrote an impassioned letter for his school magazine that railed against security measures, eulogizing, quote, true courage, the kind which enables men to face the unknown regardless of the consequences.
Yeah, that's what I was kind of bringing up, is the idea of, like, is he a rebel or for rebel's sake? Is he a rebel without a cause? Or is he a rebel with a cause? Like, is he rebelling against something because he sees what others don't?
I think that maybe it could be probably a blend of both.
Yes.
Like, I think that maybe, like, from the beginning, he enjoyed being, like, an anti-authority type kind of person, and then later in life decided to, like, use that for a purpose.
Yeah, matured into something where, like, where when he was young, he's just doing it, like you're saying, for the sake of it, but as he ages and matures, he's like, well, I can take this same intent and my abilities and my skill to use it in a more constructive way while being just totally blitzed out of my mind a lot of times.
Yeah, and there is, like, the story of, like, Hunter S. Thompson later in life, like, became increasingly intertwined with, like, his characters in his, like, writing, his persona, to the extent that, like, he wasn't really sure who people were expecting when he turned up places. So.
I would say there's probably times at that point when he's at that age and he probably could even tell, like, when am I being, this guy and my actual self, my alter ego and myself.
Yeah, he's the creator of gonzo journalism, which is a style of writing that blurs distinctions between fiction and nonfiction. His work and style are considered to be a major part of the new journalism literary movement of the 1960s and 70s, which attempted to break free from the purely objective style of mainstream reporting.
He definitely did have a problem with the way people saw things and the way people repeated things. It's like, yes, we all, especially with politics, we see one thing, but then we want to say it means something else. Like it's almost like an agenda where it's like we know where we want to go and we're trying to get there. And I think that he did a good job of watching people try to line up those politics and goals. And he said, yeah, but it's half of it's bullshit. It's bullshit. I'm watching these people and they're changing their views because they want to do this or they're, and he's like, so it's not really you. If you read some of his earlier stuff about the Fear and Loathing on the Campaign Trail, he talks about like the falsehoods that are going on, like in politics, like where people will say one thing when they really want another. What is it? One hand washes the other. They even make that comment. I love that. There's a chapter in there where they fake the. They're talking to the maid. They trip the maid out, and I want to talk about that a lot. I want to talk about the way they treat people in the book, but they do make the comment. One hand washes the other. You tell them one hand washes the other, and it's like it's this whole idea of like means to an end. Like we do this because there's a bigger idea, and I think he's mocking that. He's mocking this idea of the greater good. Everyone's like the greater good, and it's to me it's so funny. And Nixon. This was what 70s. This was early 70s.
The book is placed in 1971. That's when it takes place and everything.
Could you? I mean, he couldn't even fathom Reaganomics. Like Reagan, like
I have my own take on some of his ideas. We'll get into it later with him and Nixon. I mean, he is famous for writing Fear on the Campaign Trail. But we'll get. I do have my own thoughts about how he deals with the Nixon administration. I
just think it's funny. I'm thinking about the whole one hand washes the other. Thompson really does. I don't know. I don't want to call him an anti-hero. But
I definitely wouldn't call him an anti-hero.
Okay, well, I'm calling him an anti-hero.
Okay.
I mean,
I see him as like calling the bullshit and playing the game for what it is. Like him recognizing the rules and then playing them. I'm going to talk about that a little more.
Yeah, we'll get into it.
But that is how I see this. Okay. I don't see him as not necessarily a bad guy, but a guy who knows how to be bad.
Interesting. Katie Weaver, I think, Jordan, you and I both have the same edition that has her introduction in it. She does talk about him, Raoul Duke, not Hunter S. Thompson, but his self-insert character, being an anti-hero. And she talks about the, quote, white male impunity that propels him through the story. So I think that's really interesting that you bring up him specifically being an anti-hero.
I honestly forgot about the introduction. I did read the introduction. Sometimes, I'm not going to lie, I sometimes skip introductions in books.
Wow.
Well, because I like to read it from my point of view.
Okay, you know what?
Sometimes the introduction does have like spoilers for the rest of the book if you haven't read it before.
And the introductions, as someone from like, especially when you're reading like philosophy from like 100 years ago, you're reading somebody who like read the philosopher and then they gave their take on it, and then they say something like, well, this is what he was trying to do. He was in this time, and I want to read it as if it just got printed.
Yeah, you're reading
so
for the
I don't want any outside influence.
There you go. So to go in completely objectively, not with no, like you said, influence. I usually skip the introduction, but I did happen to read this introduction, and I do remember her saying that now. But I promise you, I did not pull that from that. I actually, that's
no,
funny.
I appreciate that it was in your brain regardless of the introduction.
Somehow it got there and stuck.
Yeah. All right, let me read one
I want to say I
thing.
didn't have that intro, hence why I don't think he's an anti-hero. I've been untainted.
There you go. Well, you didn't read the introduction.
I didn't have it in mind. It's not in my book. I don't have that intro.
If you had, it would have persuaded you to read it differently.
Probably not.
Perhaps.
I'm not easily tainted like that.
Oh.
Yes, Jake is immune to propaganda, actually.
Yeah, I forgot. So strong-minded, so strong-willed.
My own kind of person.
No, somebody tell me what to think. That's what all of them.
Let me read this last quote about Thompson and we can kind of get into it a little bit more. So Hari Kunzru wrote of Hunter S. Thompson, quote, "The true voice of Thompson is revealed to be that of American moralist. Certainly he is a misshapen sort of moralist, one who often makes himself ugly to expose the ugliness he sees around him. And sometimes he's just ugly for the sake of it. This is why he sometimes comes over as an out-and-out asshole, whining about money, boring people about his unpublished novel, making a drunken fool of himself, and generally using the facilities and not cleaning up afterwards. His prodigious intake of drugs and alcohol, coupled with his love of guns, speed, and what one high school teacher referred to as his show-off Marlon Brando swagger, has led to him being canonized by hedonists around the globe, who have made him a poster boy for the, quote, party until they drop the bomb tendency. And this sort of attitude is what rang through to me in Fear and Loathing throughout reading the book, this feeling that everything is ugly, so why shouldn't I be? A rejection of authority and tradition can be great, but being an asshole just for the simple sake of it isn't actually a political stance or any sort of activism. It just makes you an asshole.
Why not go to Vegas?
Yeah.
Because like everyone's there to be their worst version of themselves. No one goes to Vegas and says, I'm going to come back a better person.
Yes.
So I love this idea where he goes and he's like, we're going to Vegas.
I feel like,
I'm
I'm
gonna learn something.
I went to Vegas and I was like, I really love the desert.
See, show of hands for a podcast. Who has been to Vegas?
Yeah, no.
See,
It's just
I'm sorry, no.
Vegas.
I put my hand up just as a no. I'm
it's
sorry.
only me that's been to
yes,
Vegas.
It's just Vegas. Okay, yeah.
And I'm the only one. I didn't care for the gambling or anything like that. I just it rained one of the days I was out there. I've been twice now.
Can we just real quick? What was it like just from someone who doesn't care for gambling or doesn't care for I wouldn't even call you a debaucherous person.
No, he doesn't typically care
you're
for
not someone who does something for you don't seek excess for excess' sake.
Oh.
So did you find anything good in Vegas?
Oh, I loved Vegas, but I loved the atmosphere of going like in the smaller communities, some of the other things I did, like food and cafe-wise, bookstores, thrift shops. Going out, like, the second time I went, I got to do a little more venturing outside of the city itself.
Thrift shops and food, like, we can find that. I can find that in St. Augustine.
But I'm saying, like, that was the first time I went and everything when I was with a group. The second time I went by myself, I got to experience some more of, like, the actual desert atmosphere and everything, going out and doing, like, adventurous things. And I enjoy, like, I fucking love the desert. Apparently, just no beauty of green or anything out there. Just a very.
Isn't that supposed to be the point? Like it's like you're in the middle of nowhere, so why care? It's no rules apply to us. It's the desert.
It's weird when you're in a city known for how much effort it takes to keep it as a city that's livable for people with green and grass. And
I've actually heard.
My favorite part is the outside of it, where it's just a barren wasteland for the most part.
I've heard it's a great place to live, regardless of the debauchery, the casinos, the alcohol, the drugs.
It's only debaucherous because people go there.
But there are sections of this book where he talks about. Doesn't he say something about you got to go to North Vegas where the debauchery goes even further. It was like
that's where you go. That's where you go when like the main strip of Vegas.
You've outlived.
Well, no, you've broken all the
rules.
Already So you have to go here to hide out from what.
So Vegas has its own rules.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, you've already broke all their rules, and they want to allow you in the land of no rules. You have to go even further to this place where it's like, he describes it as like where, I wish I could pull it up, but he says something like, it's where the prostitutes who are too old to get caught or whatever, like they have to go another area. He describes Vegas as this place where all dreams are capable unless you break the rules, right?
No, I can see what you're saying with that. Referencing back to that Katie Weaver quote that Maisy brought over about speaking about white male impunity that propels Thompson throughout the story, and I think that works in some part in explaining Thompson's willingness, bravery. But what about Acosta? Gonzo. He's not a white male. I think this makes his actions more grand in scale, though he is breaking the same rules as Duke and Thompson. But he's also breaking more society barriers, being that he's not this usual white male doing it. I think there's less danger in Thompson doing this in the book. I think he's still being rebellious and going against the grain and everything, but I think more of it can be paid a little more to the Gonzo character, Acosta's character in this book.
I do see Gonzo as being the aggressive one. And I almost feel like Duke is constantly portrayed as the one trying to fix things that Gonzo has fucked up. Like the girl he brings, it's almost like every time Gonzo leaves, it's almost like a sigh of relief. He's like, okay, he's on the plane, he's back in Malibu.
You know, can I say this about Gonzo? A lot of times, without me actually knowing Gonzo is based on a real character, a real person, Acosta, a lot of times in the book, and especially in the movie, he's painted as this like magical being that pops in and out of existence, where it's almost like a figment of imagination.
I thought of that too. I thought of, is he real or is he not?
Exactly.
Yeah.
You know what he reminds me of? A lot of times, like I think the character's most references the Bagger Vance character, the magical person of color in a white person's story and everything like that. Again, it brings me back to the idea.
Different? Let me ask you, what'd be different between that and a Tyler Durden? Like maybe he's the one.
Tyler Durden.
He does. What I can't do. Like I want to do this.
I think.
Hold on. I'm sorry. But he's done it. Now that he's done this fucked up shit, I've got to fix it. I'm the good guy because I'm fixing it. He kidnapped this girl. Now I'm gonna get her home.
I don't think
he almost killed a
Thompson's fixing
cleaning lady.
Fixing and all that is not out of some like move
not
of
Thompson,
like
is Duke.
Duke, okay, his stand-in character Duke.
Yeah.
It's Duke's not doing these moments of like what you're saying, fixing Gonzo's mistakes or his actions. It's not out of some like move to being good or the better person. It's to save his own hide a lot of times. It's like Gonzo is the braver of the two, who's like totally releasing everything with society and how it's holding him.
Wow. Okay.
Whereas Duke is only fixing it so you're like, well, you're going too far. We need to pull it back a little bit. Duke might be an anchor in some way, but it's not an anchor for good by any means.
Okay, I see that. It's almost like an anchor for what we can get away with. Like, hold on.
Now, we can both say Duke and Gonzo are both these very toxic men, and their story is classically hyper masculine.
Okay. All right, can we back up?
Yes, please go ahead.
I just want to start from the beginning before I get too deep into it. Let's start from the very beginning, where they steal what they call the red shark.
Mm-hmm. They don't steal it.
They don't steal it.
They do rent it. Now they do scurry away.
That's terrible way.
They tear away. I'm ranking everything.
But see, I love the way he's like just checking the mirror. Like he's like, oh, it's backwards, and now I'm going.
The axle and everything like that.
But I love how.
But I think that again, that goes into showing like we're dealing with guy culture and car culture right there. I think right off the bat, like he's very at home in a vehicle. He seems even when they're driving down the road completely.
But
go ahead.
What I want to get at is at that point, Gonzo seems like the level-headed one. He's the one who's constantly telling him, as your attorney, I advise you, we have to get this. As your attorney, I advise you, let's get these drugs. We need this car. And it's almost like he uses him as a scapegoat in a sense, where he's like,
Are you saying Duke uses Gonzo as a scapegoat?
Yes, it's like Gonzo, in a way, this is the first time I'm seeing it this way. Gonzo is the Tyler Durden of the book, where he's like, I'm doing it because he said it was okay. I'm doing it because he told me we could. And they do it, and at some point across that desert, he realizes Gonzo is not in control of everything, because it's always that one toke over the line. He talks about how he starts losing his mind, and then that's the first time Duke actually stands up and says,
but see,
I realized I had to make a decision.
I think the difference is, like, I'm gonna say this, I take Gonzo as his own separate entity. I get what you're saying. He's like this alter ego of Raul Duke's character. Right? It's kind of like
I'm not saying
it's the same person, but like, well, you said Tyler Durden, that's where I'm kind of going with that.
I'm only using that as the idea of he's using him as this is why I did it.
Well, see, my point was
the devil on his shoulder. So
yes,
yeah.
Perfect.
See, I get what you mean. I get that. Okay, but for me, Gonzo being his own character and everything, I feel like he is not only doing that. You're saying devil on his shoulder and everything, but he's also a braver character in knowing that he's not a white male. Like, this is the early 70s and everything. This is still not the easiest time. It's still not the easiest time now. But it's not the easiest time to be someone who's not a white male, breaking as many rules as you can. So
he's risking more.
He's risking more. Thank you. Yes, there's more at risk.
He risks way more.
Yeah, but even if they're just breaking them, but even if you're like, no, let's get rid of all the drugs. If they were just doing the easiest breaking rules, they're speeding. Like, there is a section in the book where Duke's character is pulled over, and he's very bold with the cop and everything. He goes into an explanation explaining how.
Yeah, but he's alone. He's not with.
No, I'm not saying that. But now,
okay.
if you break that rule down to speeding and drinking, as he is in the book, if that would have been Acosta, I would imagine the outcome would have been very different with the cop. The cop is someone who lets Duke off very easily. Basically tells him to go.
Yeah.
By the way,
Hold on,
go
he
ahead.
does, but he mentions beforehand the rules.
Yes.
This is how I'm gonna.
These are the rules for a
This is
white
how
man.
I'm
These are the
gonna
rules
get
for
away
a
with it.
white man in this section.
Right,
Remember,
yeah.
Gonzo is a person of color.
So
you
wait,
now
yeah.
the rules would be different.
But
there's no
okay.
speeding and whipping and then
So
getting
do you
out with a
think-
beer in your hand
so
and
do you
drugs in the
think
back.
Duke acts differently if Gonzo's in the?
No, I don't think
car?
I don't think he acts differently. My point is that the rules of society are different for Duke and Gonzo. They're two different people. One is a white man breaking these rules, which he'll still get in trouble. But even in the 70s, this is still a different outcome for someone who's not a white male. I think it's braver for the Gonzo character to be breaking these rules and everything. Again, I'm not saying he's a good guy or anything.
No.
Like, he does some heinous things.
No,
but what my point is, the rules...
He does the most outrageous.
The punishment...
Let's be honest. Hold on. Let's
it has
stop.
nothing to do with outrage. I'm saying
Fine,
the
okay,
punishment would be different from them if they got caught for
Yeah,
the
but
same thing.
Is it
the punishment
so?
would be different?
Is it a comment on? Is it a comment on the way people behave? The reason that Gonzo is behaving like a lunatic?
You know what I would say?
Because the way. Hold on. I'm sorry. Duke portrays it almost as if all the things that are wrong with this trip is because Gonzo can't control himself. Duke seems to be controlling himself just fine.
I disagree. Duke falls
agree with that.
apart
Hold
throughout
on.
the story.
Let me just give 3 examples.
Give me
Okay.
3 examples.
First off, I'll start with the beginning where
If you don't have 3 examples, I'm gonna be
I have 3. I have at least 3. The beginning where Duke is just going to do he's going to do the job, and it's Gonzo who says, as your attorney, I tell you we got to do this. Like, we got to go get this. It's got to be it's almost like everything he does is because Gonzo told him. And that was the beginning, and it was like, fine. And then they're crossing the desert, and then he realizes, holy shit, this guy's fucked up. But then they're in
He is also fucked.
They're in Vegas. It seems like every time they're losing their shit, Gonzo's the one who's losing his shit more. Like, he tells him, he's like, I had to get you in. I had to get you were about to lose your shit on the elevator. Like, and then he kidnaps the girl. And
But I think you're
Duke has to resolve
I do think
that.
you're painting over moments where it's the reverse of that. Here's what I say.
don't-
You know what? Here's what I'll say, and I think this might
You
be
didn't let
this.
me get my third, but okay.
It's coming. We'll come back to your third if we have to. But I think
Well, the third is the biggest.
You know, we'll come back to it maybe.
Biggest part of the story.
I had this thought, you know, like, and this, you could say if I'm wrong. I think it feeds into this, like, I think this is a very much a guy thing, so I'm just talking about masculinity and stuff a little bit. That there's always this feeding off one another. There's this feeding off one another as guys. You know, for example, me and you hang out and other guys. There's always this, like, a little bit of one-upmanship, you know, being like the biggest male in the group, you know. How far can you take this? You don't take that from that at all?
I don't see it from Duke.
You don't see it from. You do not. Why don't you see?
I
it from
don't
Duke?
know why I'm such a Duke defender.
Duke apologist.
That's the word I was looking for.
I was gonna say for the white
I
guy.
don't know why I'm apologizing for the white guy, but
The white male apologizes for another
Sure.
white guy who's new there.
but the line I'm thinking of, it's always, remember he says as they're riding in the car, it's like the radio comes on, he says one toke over the line, and he's like I've never thought of it that way, but the attorney is over there like with a 357 mag, like he's the one with the gun, and he's the one who escalates everything. And the ultimate scene, and I didn't want to jump to it, but that scene in the diner, who reacts properly? The one with the hunting knife who buys an entire pie for $5, or the one who's just there trying to get a cup of coffee? So it's almost like he portrays him as this bad guy who he's keeping.
Well, in all fairness, we are taking this from Duke's perspective, though.
Of course.
And I think there is some bias there, but I think you are
Okay.
kind of glossing over some aspects where Duke is falling apart. Like, there's moments where he is alone, Gonzo is left, he's even out of the state or whatever, where he's not in a hotel room, and Thompson himself, or Duke, he himself is falling apart, lying, getting away from trouble and everything that he himself has caused or has been part of and everything like that. I would say, honestly, taking my idea about Gonzo being the brave one, I think Duke's actions are often more of one of cowardice Like he's always slinking away from an issue. He's trying to like, so not that Gonzo doesn't do that as well, but how Duke kind of deals with the actions of him and Gonzo or just himself is to like, well, I'll just get away from it. I'll skate away from it.
Okay.
He often uses his ability to blend in and just kind of like blame it on someone else. Duke is constantly blaming it on Thompson. You know, Thompson, who's in the room when he's leaving the first hotel that's been wrecked. Or, you know, he's doing that. He paints. He's always kind of scapegoating himself now that I think back on it.
You're right. He is always saying, well, it's not my fault. He's the one in the bathtub with a toaster. Remember? Or a bathtub, and he's sitting there.
He's got the radio, and he's listening to
I said toaster. I meant
Jefferson
radio.
Airplane.
And he's listening
like,
to Jefferson Airplane, and he's saying, he's like, this fucking guy doesn't even know how to control himself. But he can, though. But Duke claims that he is in full control at all times. Everything will be fine if it weren't for this fucking Gonzo pulling out hunting knives
but look at the
and threatening waitresses.
Look at the issue when he's so drugged out of his mind in the not circus. I forget the name of the
Circus.
No, it's for that. It's when they're. It might have no. It's because he's when he's seeing the lizards and everything. They're not in circus.
I think they're in the flamingo at that.
That's at the beginning.
And he's already drugged out of his mind. He's having a complete paranoid breakdown. And
Right.
it is Gonzo.
You're
that
right.
Gets him out of there.
Brings him in. You're right. That is the one.
Gonzo gets his credentials for him and everything like that because he falls apart while just trying to get his credentials originally.
So again, that's
Gonzo,
another.
Gonzo plays more of the saving part in that. He's more again. So I think you are overlooking some of Duke's own kind of misgivings and failings. In
at the beginning though, he's also Gonzo's the one who says, "I advise you." It's always he continues to say that.
Well, yeah, that's a catchline. He
says that
he is an attorney. Acosta is an attorney in real life.
But he keeps using. He's like, "As your attorney, I advise you to." And that's his way of being like, well, it's okay because my attorney.
So you're saying, in your opinion, Duke is just a follower then?
Yes.
And many times,
and he tries to play himself as some kind of victim to Gonzo's antics,
just like a white man.
Okay, maybe. I never thought of it that way.
But I
because I never really saw Gonzo. Maybe I never saw Gonzo as a minority. I didn't think of him as because he's an attorney in the 70s and the way
60s and 70s.
It's 71.
Well, the way he represents himself, I didn't think a cop would ever look at a Samoan and say, "Oh, let's arrest him."
That's a person of color. Yeah.
I don't think race gets involved.
Racial comments are made by Duke towards Gonzo and vice versa, though they seem malicious and more a part of a fuck everything approach. But this also brings to mind the many times when a group of guys were being mean, like you know how like as friends you're just mean to each other. Like there are racial comments said. You brought up race, so I want to bring this. Duke often makes racist comments, not only just towards other things in general, but to Gonzo
directly. Yeah.
Directly, but I don't think. But what brings us to mind, like it is racist and shit. But I think it brings us to mind, like when you're with your boys or whatever. And I think this is a very guy thing to kind of like be mean to each other. Is like. You say really offensive things to some of your closest friends, and it's usually accepted as a form of communication, especially when, like, you know, when being kind towards other males is not an accepted norm. So there's almost a turn in the complete opposite extreme as a way to show companionship. Whereas I think it's often seen with women throughout history is like it's more of like a kind and like hearing each other out. Whereas for these guys, Raul and Duke, it's more of, hey, let me say really offensive things or do mean things to you. Because there are times where they're clearly just... It seems like they're almost intentionally trying to poke or even fuck with one another.
Yes, I was going to bring that up. How many times do they seem to play with each other where it's like they put themselves in this alternate reality that we know as the reader doesn't exist, but they, in their drug-induced state, might actually believe is real. And it's like, I said this, and it's like, well, I guess we got to do that. And they argue as if it's a real thing when in the reality we know it's all bullshit. Like it's in the scene with the when they're driving in the car and he says something. I'm sorry, the earlier chapters, the quotes, I didn't write them down. But their behavior towards each other is very.
It's a combativeness, but
yes.
It's a friendship with combativeness, which again, that's what I'm getting at. I think a lot of guys' friendship. That's how. I mean, you know, you're a guy.
Yes.
I don't know why I'm laughing at that.
I guess I am.
But like, I think most guys would agree. Like, especially growing up, how you show
kind of like I'll fuck you up. No, man, I'll kick your ass.
How many times when you're being close to your guy friends, instead of being like, hey, how you feeling? It's like, hey, why don't you quit being a little pussy? You know, things like that.
Yeah.
But it's how you kind of like, well, you can tell me what's going on, but I'm gonna call you like in horrible things if you tell me how you're feeling.
You're right.
Right.
Yeah. Like if like we were younger, even since I was a horrible person when I was younger, if Jordan would be like, "Hey man, I'm really having a hard time," like, tell me, but I'm gonna call you a pussy as soon as you're done.
Yeah.
I think I think that describes a lot of their friendship. I think that is an exaggerated version of it for the most part, but I think that can be chalked up to
there's also,
male friendship. In
there's
the 60s
also
and 70s.
the whole idea of the attorney knowing more. It seems like he was always the one contributing. Like he represented this lower class, so like he could tell him, "I got this." I'll give you a direct example. He gives him the adrenochrome.
Mm-hmm.
Oh god.
The adrenochrome chapter is funny in that he's like, "Holy shit, I've went too far."
I think it's funny because it's still being brought up today, the adrenochrome and everything.
Well,
and like,
I didn't even think about that. I was like, "Oh wow, it is real."
It's very satanic panic, yeah.
But I love how he was like, I took some and I almost died. He was like, the way he's describing it is like my nerves were bouncing off I couldn't even move. I turned on the news to calm down.
I'm gonna throw a whole like an entire wrench into your thing about Gonzo being like the lesser dude. Or like not the lesser of two, but the more troublesome. Gonzo warns Duke, "Hey, don't take that much," before he takes that drug. And what is Duke character just downs it, like a lot of it.
I think he took it. I don't remember. I'll read it, but I think he said, dip a napkin into it and taste it. That would be the right amount.
Yeah. But he doesn't listen to that because Duke
I think he
Duke
did it
doesn't
after. I think he does it, and the guy says it like. All right, just for sake of this argument of Gonzo
You're
versus
really trying to still defend Duke on this.
I don't know why, because I think Gonzo is the problem.
I think they both have issues.
Name a single time where Duke got them into trouble and Gonzo was the victim. I feel like it's
I literally
always
brought up the point where he's so drugged, he's seeing lizards and stuff, and the floor is bleeding, and he's yelling and making a flip. And
when they first get to the hotel,
right at the beginning, right there.
At the hotel where he's seeing the lizard people.
Yeah.
Yes, that's an example right there.
I don't think that was Gonzo got him or Duke got him in trouble. It was Duke realized,
Duke
"Holy
was
shit,
making
I
a
can't
scene.
handle this."
Duke was making a scene in the
Gonzo
bar,
was the one who said, "Let me get you out of this."
Yes, Gonzo got him out of that.
Oh, okay.
I think they're both flawed characters. Clearly.
Yeah, I'm not trying to say either of them are heroes. I'm not trying to say that.
I mean, you're just defending
I have
Duke.
not said Duke is a hero. I just say Duke is.
I think you called him an anti-hero. No, that was 100.
I did, but I think Duke is doing his best to stay calm in a terrible situation.
Also, if you really wanted to bring up a really rough thing that Gonzo did while heavily drugged, Gonzo commits statutory rape and violently threatens that waitress and everything like that.
Right.
Now,
well, hold on. I want to wait for that scene.
The waitress or the rape? The rape or the rape?
Well, either or.
I think the rape rape's pretty bad too.
Well, the rape is horrible. Well, here's what's funny. See, we think we're rid of Gonzo, and then he comes back, and it's like, oh, and I have this girl with me. I caught her in an airport. She's hopped up on pill, and Duke is the one who's. But he doesn't do it because he's a good guy. He doesn't do it to save the girl. He does it because he's like, damn, this is a problem.
Yeah.
He does initially suggest that they whore her out to all of
to the police at the drug convention. Can I give you my theory on why? Can I give you my theory?
I kind of want to back up on that, but okay.
Can I give you my theory and I'll go with this quick. Can I give you my theory on why I think Thompson goes so hard in this painting of like rape and violence? For me, a lot of the violence and overall over-the-top antics of Gonzo and Duke, or part of Thompson's effort to create the image of the feared drug addict criminal that is being pushed by a large portion. It comes down to like Gonzo's painting this imagery for me because it's what's being pushed by the government and especially the Nixon administration, which is not something I just want to put on the Nixon administration. Creating imagery of others to create fear in the larger public is a time-honored tradition that's still taking place today. But there is a scene in the book where Gonzo and Duke are speaking to the cop from Georgia and just start explaining how junkies will be tearing down his door soon enough because they like warmer weather. They even bring up witchcraft, satanic panic nonsense. Yep. So that and other scenes keep making me think of the recent, like the fear-mongering, not only then but also now. There's this idea, like I think that's part of what Thompson's doing. He's taken this because okay, so in the 60s and everything, we start getting criminal rights are being advanced. Like people are being charged and everything. We're getting where they have more rights in society and everything. And it does lead like it doesn't lead to it, but there's the Nixon administration is pushing this idea that there's an uptick in crime. Like it's like they quote like some 80-something% and everything, right? So there is this going on. So you have to think that Thompson's writing this book in the midst of that. So I think that's why he does a lot of this over-the-top violence and anger and everything, rage towards women and waitress and minorities and stuff. Like, because a lot of people who are not main characters are not white people, or like white males at least. A lot of people get
Well,
that.
they
A
don't
lot of people.
To be honest, they don't specify.
The victims in this book
Well, if you think
are
about
often
it,
are like women.
Who's to say that the cop from Georgia was not a black man? Who's to say it was not a black sheriff or whatever?
I actually think you're right. I don't think he points it out and everything like that.
He never specifies.
I think,
and I'm not saying that he is. I'm not saying he's not. But I think it's interesting that we read it and immediately assume.
I think because how Thompson paints it throughout the book, he does paint these law enforcement at the drug convention as white males.
They do, and
well,
anytime
the buzz
we
cut.
have a person of color in the book, it is specifically specified. Like,
yes, it is specified.
Thompson does make a point to specifically talk.
So we
about
have to assume
races.
if he doesn't specifically say it.
I don't think you have to, but I think that is what he's going with. That I think a lot of these law enforcement are supposed to be assumed or like just known as white people, white males at that.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
I wonder if he does it on purpose.
I think it is very. Like I'm saying, I think this over the top violence and everything is being done on purpose to show, like, again, it's fear mongering today. Think of how every time you get on a Facebook or like the government, the president, the administration right now, they use this over the top exaggerated form of like what a criminal is. What what an illegal immigrant is and everything.
Right.
That is still going on today. I think Thompson is very much painting that picture now.
Well, let me ask
as a satirical.
Right. There you go. Okay, that was my question.
Yeah,
is he doing it? Do you think Thompson is doing it the same way Mark Twain did it with Huckleberry Finn?
I'm not an expert on Mark Twain and everything. It's been a long since I've read any of his
I'll
works.
tell you.
But I would say this: I think that Mark Twain is does use satire and everything.
Mark
like that.
Twain now has gone down in history as a racist.
No, he hasn't.
Well, a lot of people think he has.
Well, those people.
Okay.
I think if you're
fine, maybe I'm ignorant. Okay, but I've heard that. And here's the thing. I just want to say though, everyone forgets the whole point of Huckleberry Finn was to make racists uncomfortable.
Yes.
And then racists read it and they said, ban the book. We can't read this book because it's uncomfortable. Because it's offensive.
It makes us see.
But it's only offensive to those who are offending. And I'm wondering if Thompson was trying to do the same thing with this behavior.
I don't think in the same way. I think he writes it in a way that is supposed to be easily someone who's just reading at surface level can enjoy it. But I think anyone who knows the topic, the time, the context, or like someone who's not like, again, the guy who would be like the Georgia cop who would fear hearing about these junkies and fiends and everything coming down. I think they would read it and maybe not take it that way. I don't think they would take the deeper message from it.
Yeah. I mean, fascists and conservatives in general are famously bad at satire and nuance in general. So I do think you kind of get into dangerous territory when you're expecting somebody to be able to read this deeper meaning. And that is kind of part of my problem with the book. Like, I don't think it is clear enough that he is doing satire to the extent that I'm not even sure that he is always doing satire in all the points that you guys are bringing up. Jake and I have argued about this a little bit because...
And I would say this, just giving Maze giving Maze props on this. I didn't take it how she's saying her reason. Like it's very odd, but I didn't get that when I was a young male reading it.
Yeah.
But now that I'm older and reading back and I'm like, oh, there's all this context and everything, and I'm taking time to go through. Maze pointed that out immediately. It was like, oh, he's doing this. Like, it's not very obvious, but you would have to read into it. And I was like, oh, well, I didn't gather that. But again, I'm a white male reading this. Like, this sounds perfect. This sounds amazing.
This is a fun trip in Vegas.
And I think that's where.
So what? We threatened some poor girl and we almost killed a cleaning woman, but we got away with it. So
that's fine.
And I think a lot of people read it for that. It's a fun romp.
That was the way I was introduced to me.
Yeah.
But when I'm reading it this second time, and with the idea of knowing more of who Hunter S. Thompson is, I did see the commentary. I think that you have to know the author. Hunter S. Thompson is one of those weird authors that you got to know him
to understand his
work. Yes, that's exactly. Yeah,
I think not only do you have to know Thompson, I think you also have to know the history around this, leading up to Fear and Loathing, or Fear and Loathing on the campaign trail 72. I think you need to know the historical context around it. Like I have this, like just a, like we're not far removed from Supreme Court rulings that expand the rights of criminals, like I mentioned, or like your Miranda v. Arizona 66, which is self-incrimination, Gideon v. Wainwright, which is right to cancel, MAP, which is 61, protections against evidence obtained through illegal search and seizure. Like, from the rulings that were used by the Nixon campaign to push the message, like I was pointing out, and that the court and government were being too easy on crime, and that those were some of the biggest contributing factors of like I was mentioning, the crime rate or rising earlier. Nixon actually in a speech in '68 in New York, he touted it toward freedom and from fear, and says, in the last 7 years, while the population of this country was rising some 10%, crime in the United States rose a staggering 88%. If the present rate of new crime continues, the number of rapes and robberies and assaults and the thefts in the United States today will double by the end of 1972, a year before this book is put out in 71. Or it's put out in 72, but the book takes place in 72. I think Thompson is very aware of what's going on in the government, and he's writing that into this book. He's showing just this over-the-top, exaggerated violence, drug use, and like the druggies, the junkies infiltrating the government itself, like the drug conference that's going on. I think that historical context gives the book an entirely different reading.
Yes.
Speechless. I left him speechless.
No, I said yes.
I said yes.
Yeah,
I was going to say... Well,
no. Go ahead.
Well, you claimed I was speechless, so at least I'm speak. All I was going to say was I do agree that the historical context of the book changes things. Reading it in 2020, reading it in 2014, which was, I think, the first time I read it, it changes. Reading it if I had read this book in 1975, it would have been completely different.
Yeah.
You know what?
That's why
I still think even reading in that time, because like look at people now. A lot of people are not aware of like historical context and everything going on now. So I think you would still have to be somewhat involved or aware or like politically informed to some degree to fully grasp what the reading is.
Yeah.
Like I think you could now, like if you're looking at now what's going on with this current administration and everything like that, you could gather a lot from this book anyways, and how like fear mongering is used to scare, I'm gonna say, normies and everything.
Yeah, I think that the level of violence in Fear and Loathing is excessive, and I struggle with whether or not I think that that's purposeful. I think some of it definitely is.
I always thought it was.
Yeah.
I won't argue.
I think it's like implying it's supposed to be a reflection of society, right? Like society is this violent, so we're reacting in a violent way.
I agree with that, but I also think that I think it's just painting what these people are supposed to fear. Yeah. The people who are like not into drug use or know the culture or like anything outside like your white picket fence society and everything. I think that's what like they're supposed to be kind of scared of that and everything. I think that's what I'm not going to sit here and say which and what's excessive and what should be go with the story, but I think a lot of the violence and excess is kind of necessary to the story.
But to be fair, he cites the Manson family a couple times, and he talks about this counterculture going wrong. I think the whole idea is he wants to try to show this is what happens when people break free. Everybody he quotes Timothy Leary, the tune in, turn on, drop out, whatever, but no one ever thinks about, and he actually makes a point of this at the very end, and I thought it'd be the most interesting. He says Leary never really thought about all the people who would come for his perfect idea of consciousness. And when you actually find this consciousness outside, like what are we looking for? What most people are looking for is the end, and there is no end.
See, I take Thompson's, I guess you could say, like take on the drug culture.
I love his critique
but I think his take on drug culture is that not that like everyone wants to be free. I think that's fine. I think it's more of people go into this using drugs and everything and don't fully understand what comes with it. I don't think it's so much about being free, but like there's also this like idea of people not following societal norms. Like we have to think 60s, the counterculture, hippies, etc., all free drug use, free sex.
He talks about the death of it.
But we also have to understand a lot of these people who were part of this like counterculture and freedom and everything, they weren't really those people. They were just using drugs to like, I want to make my parents feel bad, in my opinion, because a lot of them were still racist, homophobic, transphobic. They were all these kind of shitty people still. steal.
Right.
But they like to use this imagery of like, oh, flowers and fucking love and everything.
Right.
Like that. Again, that's why I think a lot of people. When I hear someone's a hippie, I'm like, wow.
I think he's trying to say that like once you get there, you'll realize it's not it's all it's cracked up to be.
Yeah, there's like a huge critique of the hippie movement in this book, which is interesting also because we're in the 70s when this book starts in 71. Everybody's disillusioned with the hippies. And then in the 70s, we get things like the punk movement, which is a response to the hippie movement, where the hippies were like all free love and like doing activism, but like not really doing any activism. You know what I'm saying?
I will say there was some like good activism and everything that happened during that time, but I think a lot of it was more. I think for a lot of the hippies, it was just for show.
Yeah.
Yes.
And then you have the
I think that's
movement,
what
which arises as a response to that, which is like people are angry. We want to actually do some shit.
I love. He actually references Casey and Ginsburg.
I thought you were going to say Casey and the Sunshine Man.
No. What's his name? John Casey? What's his name? Casey? What thing? I wish I knew his name. Casey. He's the acid guy who drove the bus around.
Yes, I didn't know about. Yeah, I'm sorry.
What's his name? Ken Casey. Ken Casey. He wrote
You're talking about like
Cuckoo Nest.
You're talking about like the Beatnik movie.
Yeah, he wrote the Cuckoo Nest book. Ken Casey.
Yeah.
Anyway,
You gonna make a point with that?
yes. Well, him and Ginsburg were trying to do something, and Thompson saw the futility in it. He was like, he saw them try to do this, and everyone went and looked at it and said, "Yeah, that sounds good, but I can't do it. Someone else can do it, but not me." And then before you know it, it's dead. And he was trying to say, yeah, the American dream as you know it is this the idea of, oh, it's for somebody else. It's not for me.
On that point, when you're talking about like talking about the beatnik movement and everything like that, I think Thompson. I get what you're saying, and I agree to a point. I think a lot of Thompson is like, it was a failing in general, not so much what these guys are writing about. We as a society, if you fail to meet those standards or whatnot, I think that's what you're getting at. I think, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
What they thought was on the other side is not as pretty as it looked. And he was trying to show you this is consciousness awakening. This is the other side. Come see it. And then it's like, and this is why I want to talk about the idea of debauchery versus hedonism.
Well, I mean, like, talking about Duke examines the national shift in American drug use from like psychedelics in the 1960s to much harsher drugs in the 70s, claiming that, quote, the big market these days is in downers. What sells today is whatever fucks you up, whatever short circuits your brain and grounds it out for the longest possible time. Duke asserts that this shift is not unexpected or random, but is linked to the country's political climate, like I was pointing out. Quote, consciousness expansion went out with LBJ, and it is worth noting, historically, says Duke, that downers came in with a Nixon. The election of a violent and corrupt president has led to America's worsening drug epidemic, and Duke openly draws attention to this. I mean, we have, in 1970, you have the Comprehensive Drug Abuse Prevention Control Act, Controlled Substance Act of 1970. Like, we have, again, we go right back to this political climate, which Thompson does write about. We have that going in.
I wholly believe Thompson, everything he's saying is political.
It's not just a failing of society. It's just, well, it is a bit. It's like automatically assuming the worst because of drugs and not looking at our own culture. Like, oh, let's blame the drugs and the hippies and like the Nixon administration was not above blaming the civil rights movement, which they called riots and everything, at protests and all that. I think we can't just put it on like Thompson saying society failed just because of like, we're not good at being beatniks or whatever. I don't know where I'm going.
No, Thompson is definitely using drug use in the book as like the drug culture is not a problem to be fixed. It's a natural response to the way American society and culture is at the time of the novel. He's talking about that no matter how awful his terrible drug trips are, it's preferable to the real world experience of mainstream American society in the 70s. I think that's a huge theme of the book.
Yeah, I get what you're saying with that, and I agree.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, see, I think that's kind of how Trump became president. I don't think Trump's a bad guy for being president. I think that
he's a bad guy. Gotcha.
That's fine, but I think that it's a reflection of us as a country or as a culture that he was able to become president. Like the way people are willing to say no to that person, I'd rather this person. We all agree. There's not a single person I know who will say, Trump's a good guy. Trump's a great guy. I want him.
I know a few.
But I'd rather him than
again
that.
I think it's like I think it goes back to what I was saying about the Nixon administration using this conceived idea of why crime's happening, why is like price up, why is everything bad in the country, blah blah. Let's blame criminals and civil unrest or riots, as they would say.
Trump was the quote-unquote answer. And if Trump's the answer, that shows just how bad the problem was.
The rising tide of fascism in the United States is
it's very...
I think your predecessor Trump is Nixon in a way. Yeah. Reagan was shit too, but we'll get at him later. But Nixon runs...
I don't know much about Reagan.
Nixon runs on this war on crime. In 1971... the Attorney General, John Mitchell, gives the war on crime the beginning of the end, or the end of the beginning. And this is in 1971. This is like when they talk about crimes and drug use and everything going on in the country. And this is 1971. When this is being written and published, you have this in the moment. Nixon's already gearing up for a run for a second term and everything. And we know how those two criminals ended up. John Mitchell was, I think, charged later on. I can't remember the charges, and ended up in prison. He's the first Attorney General, I think, to ever be arrested or charged and stuff like that.
So you're spitting facts that I don't know.
Well, that's fine.
I'm not a historian. I'm sorry.
But I find it kind of funny that you have criminals who are pushing this narrative about a country being scared and like crime ridden and like blah 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 blah. Yes. And then they themselves are the criminals who hopefully will be later charged like the first.
I just wanted to bring it up to the point where Trump was able to be successful only because of how bad things were. And I think that's what Thompson was trying to warn us about. If we look at it from a satirical point of view and not I don't think Hunter S. Thompson was ever walking around puffing his chest out saying, look at what I can get away with. He was trying to show the people, look at what it takes to be successful. And it was like, you have to go further than people are willing to accept. You have to be bigger than people can fathom. And he even comments several times in the book where he says, I could be arrested, but what judge would actually believe these things happen? And it's kind of like any politician that would say, who would convict me? Why would they convict me? Look at who I am. So
yeah, I think that's a really good point. And I think it does kind of harken back to the idea of like the hyper masculine like edgelord nihilism of the book, like this attitude of like fuck all the rules because none of that matters.
Yes.
And I do think that actually kind of echoes back and is super relevant to what's happening with young men online today. This sort of fuck everything mentality, especially like in the like manosphere movement, young men with angry manifestos.
What's that new guy's name? No, there's a new guy. Is it Rudy? I shouldn't just.
Rudy Giuliani's been around for a minute.
No, I shouldn't just throw this name out there like it's nothing.
But thank you for interrupting. Makes this point.
No, I'm so sorry. No, but I'm so sorry.
No, you're good. I was pretty much finished.
I am very sorry.
Joy just couldn't help it. It's like, who's that Rudy guy?
No,
you mean from like the football movie?
I know that. No, I'll look it up. Well, you keep talking. I'll look it up. Keep looking up, or you keep talking. I'll look it up.
I want to point out after pausing and doing some research, Jordan was talking about Nick Fuentes, not a Rudy. You know, I mean, a Nazi and a piece of shit. I'll say that much without going into just how horrible that being is. But moving on from Jordan's very horrible name of why a bad person, do we think Hunter S. Thompson found the American dream or what came of it?
I do think that throughout the book, I mean, the tagline of the book is A Savage Journey to the Heart of the American Dream, right? So obviously that's a big theme of the book, and it's probably like the most important piece of what Hunter S. Thompson is trying to get at. I do think that Duke's outrageous and ridiculous experiences in pursuit of the American dream is meant to like satirize that like the traditional ideas of what the American dream is antiquated and not actually attainable for most people or anyone actually. And I think that this is also talked about like in the only example of Duke finding the American dream, which is at Circus Circus. The owner had dreamed of as a child of running away to the circus, and quote, now the bastard has his own circus and a license to steal too. And I think that is just like Thompson very clearly underscoring like his thoughts on the American dream and what that means.
See,
I think it speaks to like a more. I think that could be modernized as well. Like, because this guy, yeah, he found his dream. He owns his own circus now. But there's this own, like we look at now. This you have to like commercialize your dream and everything. Like you know, our Patreon will be set up later. But whatever you want to do and everything, you have to make it appealing and acceptable or viable. Where you can be bought by other people to go into it to obtain and keep your dream. If that makes any sense. I don't know if you guys agree with that or not.
I disagree.
Okay, well, disagree then.
Okay, I will tell you the way I saw it, and this is actually my favorite part of this whole thing, the search for the American dream. The best chapter in the book, in my opinion, is the one that diverts from the original script, and I don't know why he did it this way. It's just so interesting to me, the way it goes. Attorney, Duke, waitress, Lou, they're talking, and like they're talking to these real people. They're out in the middle of nowhere. They're out from Vegas now, and they're looking. They're like, "Hey, we came here for the American dream." And Lou tells them, "Oh, you mean that place over on the corner of, off of Flamingo and to the left and to the right?" And it's like, "Oh,
it burned down a few years ago.
You can go find it there." Well, you don't find that out. But he tells them exactly where to go, and they're like, "Oh, well, take a left, take a right, and then you can find the American dream." And they get there, and they find the place to be burned down. And not only is the place burned down, but the place was described as being this place where a bunch of young,
I think they say junkies.
Junkies used to hang. Like it was their
They
dream.
burned it down.
Yeah.
And what happened was it got burned down. So I think this was the ultimate commentary by Thompson about how the counterculture fucked it up, and how they took something and they pushed it as far as they could go, and the furthest they could go was burn the place down. And so if you want to show up and find the American dream,
Again, I think that speaks to Thompson's own being let down by the counter hippie movement and everything. I think that speaks to him just thinking they failed and not being true to what they should have been.
And also I think it's Thompson trying to say if you'll never find the end of it. I think that the whole point of Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas, and to me, what if the entire thing, I'm going to be that guy and be like, what if the entire thing never happened, and all of this is them driving down that road, down Death Valley towards Vegas, and everything they're talking about is the journey. Because I want to bring up the American dream is not real. The American dream was never.
Can I comment? Let me comment because I think I can add to what you're saying here.
Because I feel like if you leave me with the American dream is not real, I feel like I'm going to be cut off.
Well, no, we can come back to you. But I think that what needs to be added here, what you're saying about it never being real, Hunter S. Thompson in the book or throughout it, he makes multiple reference to Horatio Alger. Do either you know who that is?
Yeah.
So he's the guy that's famous. I think he wrote a book called From Rags to Riches. He's that synonymous with like being the guy who wrote anyone can find the American dream through hard work and perseverance.
Yeah.
Thompson makes multiple mentions of that, and I think he's poking fun at that the idea was ever real.
Right.
And that's what I'm getting at with what you're saying. I think as we're saying that it's never been real. It's this fictionalized idea that if you work hard, pull yourself up from your bootstraps and whatnot.
Okay, can I take over from right there?
You may. Go ahead.
Well, the American dream, if you want to go down it, and I will just cite this real quick, just as an English teacher, I've taught the American dream, or at least the concept of it, to my students, and been like, what is the American dream? And the very first thing we teach is the Declaration of Independence. And the very first thing we talk about is life, liberty, and the...
Pursuit. Go ahead.
No, I want you to finish it. Life, liberty, and the...
No.
Pursuit of happiness. Not happiness. It's the pursuit. And I think what Thompson is trying to show you is that's all the American dream is chasing the American dream. The American dream is
The journey, not the destination.
the journey, not the destination. It's the idea. It's the idea that you can do whatever you want. We're not guaranteeing it'll make you happy, but you can try.
Maybe the real American dream is the friends we made along the way.
No, we're done. We're done.
I wasn't gonna say that.
No, we're done. Podcast in.
Hello again, friends. Thanks for listening to another episode with us. I have to admit, I was a little nervous about how this one would go when I was putting it together, but I ended up being really happy with how it turned out, so I hope you were too. We'd love it if you would rate, review, and subscribe to the show wherever you're listening. We also recently started a Patreon, so if you have the means and want to help support us, that would mean a lot. We post behind-the-scenes stuff over there, but also want to start releasing some Patreon-exclusive content soon, so be on the lookout for that. See you next time!
Maybe you could come over and read it again to me tomorrow.
As you wish.